These innocent children who go for education are now caught to a powerful LTTE propaganda machine, which is throwing good money to get their bullshit cause ratified, and the legislative dumb Ontarians are blindly eating that BS. So who presented this bill? Who led the way to bring in such legislation in Canada? Sometimes you might think it might be a white Canadian dude. Nope. It's a Sri Lankan-born LTTE lover. Let me introduce you to the author of Bill 104, Vijay Thanigasalam, a legislator for Scarborough Rough Park, an electorate in Ontario, much like one of our Grama Seva divisions. How come this brown dude represents that electorate? Well, that's because in this electorate, over 32% are South Asians, meaning Sri Lankan Tamils, living there. This electorate has one individual representing the Canadian Parliament. He's called Satya Sangari Ananda Sangari. That's a very familiar name, right? Well, it's because he's the son of TULF leader V. Ananda Sangari. He has been very vocal about federalism here in Sri Lanka. So now this electorate has one guy representing the Parliament of Canada pushing towards LTTE ideology in Sri Lanka. The other dude, Vijay Thanigasalam, represents the State Parliament of Ontario. As you can see, in 2011, Thanigasalam so badly missed his beloved leader, the dog of a terrorist, who was killed and eradicated militarily by our heroic forces. Yes, the same ludicrous human excrements who was involved in ethnic cleansing, human drug trafficking, bombing civilians and using human shields, and using children as soldiers and suicide bombers. Yep, that nincompoop. This legislative member of the Canadian State Parliament misses him so much. So what does he do? He whips up a bill to spew bullshit to young minds. The dumb Canadian State Legislative Assembly eats his bull and passes the legislation, which is now enforced since last year as Bill 104. Now, although it's occurring in Canada thousands and thousands of miles away from Sri Lanka, what we need to understand is when LTTE and its failed leader Prabhakaran colossally was unable to achieve his dubious homeland dream and tactfully managed to brainwash the Tamil youth in Sri Lanka to fight for his wealth and cause, and mind you, when his children were having a great time in London, he failed in achieving that separate homeland dream militarily. Now, individuals like Vijay Thanigasalam from Canada, who's an ardent follower of Prabhakaran, is creating another generation after generation of young minds and brainwashing them with the utmost bull on what really happened here in Sri Lanka and trying to create another set of people who would work towards their failed leaders' dreams. In other words, this joker has masterfully fooled the Ontario Canadians to recruit young minds to his terrorist schemes by tactfully embedding these types of teachings through the school curriculum. I hope intelligent Canadians, if there's anything like that, can see through this bill and the bull and will put an end to his shenanigans. With this act, schools are getting funding to educate their children on this terrorist ideology. Is that what Canadians really want? For their tax dollars to educate and create another set of brainwashed, terrorist-loving children? Isn't this bill actually indirectly supporting recruitment of terrorists? Has the parents and teachers vetted this educational process and found the truth by themselves? Or are they being forced by these terror-loving parliamentarians like Thanigasalam to recruit Canadian children for their terror cause? I mean, this is similar to the terror recruitment camps we saw in Afghanistan, right? The only difference is this has been done via the state legislative body, tactfully.
No, now what happened was, after 2009, all the Western governments, they have stopped giving refugee status for the Tamils, especially come from Sri Lanka. So then, as example, previous years, data shows us roughly 20,000 Tamils were granted as refugees each and every year during the war period. Last few years, only 619 application has been granted. Now, they had to have another campaign, influence the asylum policy.
This is a political program carried out by the remnants of the LTTE because they want to carry on bringing refugees into this country because every refugee means 35 to $40,000 per person. And I believe that Bill 104 is merely a means of strengthening their claim. So this is merely a way of keeping their money supplied.
Well, all is not lost. We Sri Lankans are true survivors. Sri Lankan Canadians in Ontario are fighting back. They've already filed a couple of lawsuits in the Ontario Superior Court asking whether the term genocide can be used in Sri Lanka's fight against terrorism, especially when there is no evidence to base that claim. Sadly, this is not a Sri Lankan government-funded push. Sri Lankans living in Ontario, Canada have banded themselves together. They're doing bake sales, they're doing car washes, they're doing various activities and finding the funds by themselves to go after these terror-loving state parliamentarians and their dubious acts. All of you should visit srilankacanada.ca to get more information on this fight against these LTTE loving fanatics who's using their money to propagate the utter bull which our heroic soldiers defeated militarily on Sri Lankan soil. Now, the LTTE lovers are doing their level best to get some support across the world to keep their failed home state dreams alive. Tamil Sri Lankans, mind you, you really need to understand that Tamil Sri Lankans living here have nothing to do with this bill or this bull. They want to live in harmony with everyone. Tamils who are really here are more interested in getting the best for their children, living their best lives, best schools, best roads, development, everything. Everyone else wants is the exact thing that they also are interested in. This separate Tamil homeland bull is kept alive by the existing LTTE sympathizing terrorists. I know this firsthand because I'm 50% Tamil. Not one member in my family has ever wanted anything to do with this separate homeland bull. Remember, these parliamentarians from Canada is supporting a terrorist ideology. Anyone supporting that should only be viewed as terror supporters and nothing else. In case we fail this fight in Canada to get rid of this nonsense spewed by Canadian state legislators like Thanagassalam, this crap can slowly seep into other countries like the UK and Australia, where there is a large LTTE-loving diaspora and can gain traction worldwide as well. Well, joining me now to discuss more on the upcoming UNHRC session is Professor Pratibha Mahieash from the Faculty of Law, University of Technology in Jamaica. He was also the former Human Rights Commissioner in Sri Lanka from 2012 to 2015. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining me. Professor, here we are, once again, at the cusp of another UNHRC session. We all know that there will not be many positive things about the situation in Sri Lanka, despite our continuous efforts towards human rights. So why do you think that the Human Rights, the High Commission, along with the UNHRC, is blind to any progress made? What do they really want?
Mahieash, I really endorse your statement because this is the only place where the LTTE diaspora and their supporters, international human rights organization, can put the blame for Sri Lanka, criticize Sri Lanka and to pass a resolution. So all these elements, they get together and collate all their reports. What they do, they submit to UNHRC High Commission Office. So they just believe that. So this is the issue. Now I'll give some example. You have seen very recently, January 22nd, the 2022, the first visit of Mr. Tariq Ahmed, the present state minister in United Kingdom. He gave a very progressive report. He also made his sentiments and also how Sri Lanka is progressing. Many foreign visitors, they visit here, they visit the country, they meet the people, they analyze our day-to-day situation and they say we are progressing. Most of the 13 recommendations given against Sri Lanka, now we have implemented or in the process of implementing. So this is not the situation where UNHRC, the 5 countries as well as Human Rights High Commission Office see. So they want to put the target on the spot because we have withdrawn from 30/1. That's the real reason, Mahieash.
Indeed. Professor, I want to get your attention to the U.S. Now, 2 years ago, as soon as the Biden administration came to power, one of the first things the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, had undertaken was to comment about the accountability process here in Sri Lanka, which resulted in them sponsoring a resolution later on. How do you see America's role this time around, especially with the Ukraine issue still hot on the heels? Will they continue to harass Sri Lanka, or do they have more significant issues to deal with?
UNHRC never look how United States, the situation, violation of the human rights we have seen in many ways. As well as we have seen in the former President Trump's government, they have withdrawn from the UNHRC because they are playing a big political role. So this is where when President Honorable Biden came to power, once again they took the membership. And also they pressurized. This pressurize is basically Sri Lanka. Why? Whatever the UNHRC methodology, UNHRC system, we are actually signed and ratified all these UN conventions. But they want to set up a hybrid court. Still, they are actually blaming the accountability where you have not punished the war criminals. Now, actually, Sri Lanka, we have war heroes. We have it actually humanitarian operation. In that situation, how can they say? And also, very recently, a general became a victim. His visa was cancelled without any natural justice followed. They just believe, if someone putting a report, they believe it. And very recently, very sad, this general, right? So why they have cancelled the visa? You have to have a investigation. Without any investigation, if you put that, it is very biased. So USA try to control this, as well as we have to act according to their program and procedure. No, UNHRC is a place where homegrown situation, homegrown constitution and homegrown methodology we have to develop. Other countries are supporting us.
Also, Professor, very quickly, India's role, will it be crucial this time around as well? How do you see them playing out?
Mahieash, this is a situation. India always, when a resolution coming against Sri Lanka, UNHRC, they abstain. But they will tell you can't pass a resolution against targeting one country. So actually India, most of the time, they look the perspective of USA. On the other side, Russia, China, Cuba, Vietnam, and most of the Middle East, Arabic region countries, they are supporting us. So what they do, always India, South Africa, they are in mid. They think this should not be passed, but they are absent. But they should understand one day this will happen to them with the Kashmir situation. So we have to win India. To win India, we have to do a lot of things via 13th Amendment implementation, as well as the reconciliation process we have started. The new government, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Professor G.L. Peiris visited India and gave most of these pledges. So I think in future we can win India in such a situation. So if India abstain, that is a lost situation for Sri Lanka. If we win India, definitely all these resolutions will go to the wastage basket.
True, indeed. Thank you very much, Professor Pratibha Mahieash, for joining us on State of the Nation. Let's take